because I believe in it. And I believe what's going on here, and I believe our nation's at that point where, we have a Congress that is unwilling. It's not that they're not able; they're just unwilling to do what needs to be done to put our country back on the right track. And I hope that my experience over the last 8 years serving in the Mississippi legislature, I was blessed to come and be a part of the simulated convention 8 years ago, or I think it was 7 years ago, and I hope that some of that experience I can bring it here, and we can continue to fine tune and try to serve as an example for the rest of the country that this is something that is real. It could be done, it can be done, it will be done hopefully, and that we'll actually get some real change done that Congress is unwilling to do anything about. Well, I think there's a certain energy that you get doing it in sort of the seat of our nation's history. If you know the history behind Colonial Williamsburg and the fact that we're actually here doing a convention, it adds a certain level of romanticism to it, but also a certain level of energy to walk in the footsteps of our founding fathers and folks that believed in this idea, this republic that we live in today. Well, I think that depending on what committee you're serving on is probably going to be where you're the most energetic and focused. I do believe, though, that term limits is probably going to be one of the areas that will be the most charged. I think a lot of folks, that and the debt, the physical restraints, I think that both of those things, if you poll the nation, you see how important it is and how much agreement. It doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Independent or Republican, you know there's a problem. We've had people in DC for 40, 50 years. We need term limits, and you can't avoid the debt. I mean, one of the reasons we've had so much inflation the last several years is they just keep printing, and we are on a track to unsustainability. We will have to pay the piper one day, and I think the American public is aware of that. And so I think those are probably the two big issues. I know that the two big issues for me is term limits and fiscal restraints. And I know that a lot of folks, they hear all these horror stories about a runaway convention, but what they don't stop to look at is the fact that the process is the same. Whether it's Congress doing it or a convention doing it, it's still got to go back before all the states to be ratified. So I think now is the time, and I think as we see, as our nation continues to head towards the precipice, which it is, if we don't do something now, there won't be a nation, not the nation that we grew up in, not the nation that we love, for our children, our grandchildren to grow up in. And so, yes, I think it's doable. I think we should do it, and I think we can do it. Until you've seen it done, you really don't know if it can be done. And we've done it before. We're going to do it again. And I think it is a perfect model and a perfect demonstration that this isn't something that needs to be feared. This is something that is another option that our founding fathers knew that we might have a day where we needed a Hail Mary, something that we could do when, like I said, Congress is unwilling to do what needs to be done. And they can see that, hey, this can be done normal, in order, by the rules, and we can provide real, lasting change and benefit to our nation as a result. Usually when somebody comes to me and says that, well, I don't know about that convention of states, I think that's a mistake, I ask them why. And it's usually a fear that they've had that somebody else has planted in them for some reason. And when you break it down to them and you show them that this isn't some just like whim, it's something that was put into our Constitution for a reason, and there is a process. And when they understand there's a process and there are guardrails, and they understand that most of their fears aren't really that grounded, especially when they learn the process of how we've added amendments in the past through the congressional process, they tend to calm down and go, well, yeah, that doesn't sound like what it was portrayed to me. And so I think it's just ask them first, well, what is it that you're afraid of? What do you think is going to come out of this? And I think most folks that oppose it, they oppose it because somebody planted some fear, some doubt in them because they had an agenda. And so I think when you can dispel the fear and you can show the process and educate them in the process, almost every time they'll say, well, yeah, that makes sense. I can get behind that.
tell you from firsthand, it can be done, it will be effective.
So I think there are people who've never even heard of it that are going to see this and be impressed, and I think that builds enthusiasm.
This is the defining moment and the last opportunity to get our republic right.
We need a solution as big as the problem.